Hey, everybody, it is Malina Moye, and I am so excited to have partnered with Gibson for Black History Month honoring Sister Rosetta Tharpe. This is part two of what I hope will be an educational conversation, and the goal is to always continue to bring awareness and continue to see all of our queens shine. So, today I thought we would talk with the modern artists and guitarists and their influence of Sister Rosetta Tharpe on them. And today, sitting with us, we have the fabulous Kat Dyson. Kat is a guitarist, vocalist, composer whose ambition and talent have made her a musical force. Her style crosses much musical ground, and Kat is consistently on the best guitarist lists in the world. So, Kat, thank you so much for being here with us. And she's a fantastic artist as well. And then, of course, we have the wonderful Yola, who is a four-time Grammy nominated English artist, who is a singer, songwriter, and actress. She will be playing the role of singer-guitarist Rosetta Tharpe in Baz Luhrmann's upcoming movie. I can't wait to see this. This is going to be incredible. So we obviously had to have a conversation with you. And then we have Ali Venable, who is an incredible artist on the rise. She's an American blues rock guitar player, singer, and songwriter. Her latest album, Heart of Fire, is due out February 26th. And then check out her current single, Bring on the Pain, featuring one of my favorite guitar players, Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And then obviously we have the wonderful Joanna Connor. Joanna is an American Chicago-based blues singer, songwriter, and guitar virtuoso. She was listed as one of the top 10 women musicians who will save rock and roll. So I'm so excited to have all of you guys here and to share your perspective. So I'll start with you, Kat. You are obviously incredible. We've seen you with everybody from Prince to Mick Jagger, you name it. And one of the things that for me, is seeing a woman of color just getting up there, killing it. And I mean, you are just shredding. Like you do everything. You do funk, rock, soul, blues. You are just, she's like the epic queen of like just guitar players, period. Man or woman, this woman is badass. So for you, I would like to know, did you always know about Sister Rosetta Tharpe? Or was it something that you had discovered on or what?
Well, my mom started me on the journey when I decided, piano, like most Southern girls, you have to take piano. But, all the boys were outside making noise with guitars and making it look fun. And I'm like, Mom, I want a guitar. Once I got a little acoustic guitar from Sears, you get the guitar kit and everything in the little book with the little Beatles songs and everything. She pulled out an album with Odetta. She says, well, if you're going to do this, I want you to see someone that looks like doing this. And it was folk songs, Odetta. I think she was live at Lincoln Center or something fantastic that she had done. And she was doing Michael Robo's or the real freedom songs and things like that. So she put me on a quest to find people that look like me doing this,
That's amazing.
So that kind of started me on my way. And as fate would have it, 20, 30 years down the road, I actually met Odetta and we became friends.
Wow.
But in the meantime, in my musical journey, I got to play with Big Mama Thornton. I got to play with a lot of these blues ladies because I was part of a house band in a club in Montreal when I lived in Montreal. So I got the chance to, do a blues festival. Jessie Mae Hemphill, who was born before Rosetta, was part of that. So it just started me looking and Memphis Minnie. But what made me dive deep into Sister Rosetta's music was working with Toshi Regan. She did a deep roots of rock and roll series with, the guys from Living Color and all, the guys from The Family and all these fabulous artists. And it showcased a lot of Rosetta's music. So I had to jump in there and be that and, just absorb everything. She's such a historian and so is her mother. Her mother's like, teaches that. So I jumped in then and it's just been a deep dive into loveliness, I mean, we did Strange Things Are Happening Every Day. We did Didn't It Rain? And then I found Johnny Cash did Strange Things That Are Happening Every Day, and that Jeff Beck was influenced by her, and that, Eric Clapton was influenced by her, and, Led Zeppelin. I mean, the list goes on, and Keith Richards in his documentary, he talks about, man, I saw her do that thing, and wow, you know.
Wow. First of all, Kat, I had no idea that your history was that deep and went like that. No wonder now it puts everything in perspective for me about you as a player.
You know, people, you know, young ladies who come to me or my students and stuff like that will start and they give me the, what can you tell me if there's one thing? I'm like, try everything.
I love that. That's like the real tutelage. And Yola,
Yeah.
I see you. So yeah, so for you, were you aware of Sister Rosetta Tharpe recently, or did you know about her from a while ago?
I think a lot of my teenage years were growing up playing parents' records. You know, like it was that kind of, you know, 90s, noughties era where, you know, smartphones weren't quite the thing yet. You couldn't quite research everything you wanted to research.
Right.
And so it was always down to record collectors. So I'm a Brit, as you know. And so I was getting into rock and roll music and just always looking at what came from what, because it was a time of hip hop and everyone was sampling. So the language of, oh, that's a Smokey tune, or oh, that's whatever. It was just really in the vernacular to expect something to have come before it. I had lots of friends that were record collectors, and my mother was a record collector. And so I was just always being steeped in this music. And like we're playing a lot of kind of like early rock and roll music and a lot of early soul music. And all of a sudden Sister Rosetta Tharpe comes on. I'm like, who is this? Wow. And so then we go down a rabbit hole trying to find things online, and just the energy that she brought. Yeah. And it's because she played in this train station in Manchester. And I think it's that video that stuck with us of her visits to the UK, just left footprints for all of our rock and roll legends. And so you can't really get into rock and roll as a student of music and not look at what influenced them and be touched by that. And so, yeah, that was my childhood. I was always like steeped in people that collected records. And that's really what it is when you live in the UK. It's not like you're born in that state or anything like that, or, you know, you're a consumer of music like everyone else is around the world, you know.
I love it. And Allie, and how about yourself? Were you aware of Sister Rosetta Tharpe?
I am a big fan of Bessie Smith, and I try to do like one Bessie Smith song on every record that I put out, and she was kind of an outlet or introduction into that type of, you know, blues and gospel sound. And I know I think it was Miss Kat that had mentioned Memphis Minnie.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of hers as well. And so that kind of those women are what introduced me into who Rosetta Tharpe is, and, you know, that type of world, and learning that she was basically the, you know, the mother of rock and roll and influence like Elvis and, you know, Little Richard and people like that.
And how about you, Joanna?
Well, to be honest with you, I had a really wonderful mother. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I saw like the Blind Boys of Alabama as a kid, and Buddy Guy before I was like 10 years old, and LaBelle and all this stuff. So I had a great upbringing from my mom. And then when I moved to Chicago, in retrospect, I look back, the first job I ever had was with a gospel group, the Shirley Adams Singer. It was an all-female band, and like the Heavy Baptist Church and all that. And I was playing guitar for them. But then later on, when I started to play in a lot of blues bands, I'd say a vast majority of the blues musicians in Chicago come from the church.
Oh, yeah.
Guys in my band right now, they all play in church every Sunday. So the gospel influence was in my music from day one. And so seeing her, and it kind of clicked to my head that, like, you know, women were so, you know, the way she was so proud and so upfront and so not aggressive, but they said she played like a man, but it figures to me that she came from the church, because that's where you will see that with women musicians. Like the majority of women musicians I met in Chicago, they were playing in church. They might never step in the club, but like some of my, compatriots, their mothers played drums in church. And I'm like,
Gotcha.
And they're like 60 years old. Like, so it was, it influenced me in a way I wasn't even aware of. And then I feel like, it's wonderful that she's becoming in the forefront now, because she, I was pretty much a historian of music too. And that wasn't brought to my table. She was something I discovered later. I'd heard the name, but I wasn't, and so I'm really happy to see her being rediscovered and being given the props in the last 10 years,
But it started to dawn on me, and I thought, wow, what took so long though for her to get inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And
thank you.
She was so, you feel me? I'm hearing all this great stuff, which is awesome. That was the one thing I had asked when I was talking with Gail and Bob and Jerry. I said, where did we fail her as a society? Because here's a woman who created and did all these things. And for me, my mom and my dad grew up in the South. And I will tell you this, when we go to church, that to me, that is obviously where she got all that from the church. Because if you know sanctified churches, that like all those, the yells, the all that, the way the long notes, the growl, that is the preacher who is preaching.
Suffering in pain.
Is the feeling, the vibe, the story, all of that is rock and roll. So when I saw that, I thought, now it makes sense. And then
she straddled the fence because, like I said, Memphis Minnie, Jessie Mae Hemphill, those who came before her, came out blues. There was no gospel lyrics. So when she stepped up, she did gospel versions, her own versions of gospel lyrics, of gospel songs in the blues genre. So she straddles a fence so much that it got her more exposure than some of the, Memphis Minnie does some really gritty songs. So it lyrically, she got more pull because she took sacred lyrics, but she put the blues underneath her. She put the gritty arrangements, the swinging arrangements, these strange things that happen every day. I mean, you see her do it with the big band. It's like the strange things that happen. It's not really gospel, but her lyrics were not necessarily blues then. You know what I mean? So she straddled the fence so much, but her playing was totally blues, and arrangements were totally blues. But she played it. She played it. She played it kind of in the middle.
But the Stones got into Muddy Waters, and he was languishing at the time, and in America. So I think there's definitely an ability for us to take the things that are created by us for granted and to go, oh, we don't need that now, we're doing something else. And I'm like, it's literally 10 years ago, it's literally 5 years ago, and to already be over it. I think there's definitely an ability to do that, to want to move through music and through genre quickly. And I think maybe even to genreify like so explicitly that we're not even listening with our ears anymore. We're not really listening to the etymology of music. We can't hear the rock and roll in what Sister Rosetta Tharpe's playing. We go, here's some music, we're going to redefine this whole genre. And so you're not in it anymore. Sorry. Bye, lady.
Right.
And I think that's where we lose our story. And if no one's telling our stories, then you're not going to go, oh, and this is where it came from, because like we've lost that kind of musical etymology.
I'm with you. And I want to say this too. We have the fabulous Gretchen Menn, who just joined us as well. And the thing about Gretchen is, as an American guitarist and composer, she has her own original instrumental work. And she's also the lead guitarist for Zepparella. It's an all-female led Zeppelin tribute band. And she also is regularly on every major The Best Guitarists in the World list, whether male or female. So thank you so much for joining in, Gretchen. We appreciate you. Oh, that's so real.
I'm sorry to be late. I was just finishing a thing that I'm doing with Jennifer Batten. It was a deep dive into some of our guitar heroes. So I was actually just talking about some of Led Zeppelin's problems with attributing music where it came from, and kind of tracing a little bit of the lineage back. Memphis Minnie and Kansas Joe McCoy did our, When the Levee Breaks. When Zepparella did our version of it, that was who we credited as the songwriters, citing inspired by Led Zeppelin's version of Memphis Minnie's song, When the Levee Breaks. So
don't you, Gretchen, thank you. Right? We had claps.
Whoever says that.
Well, and Sister Rosetta Tharpe, how about her version that influenced Led Zeppelin's version of Nobody's Fault But Mine? So essential part of our history. And it was unfortunately though I'm very grateful that Led Zeppelin helped introduce America to some of our own heritage. I think we can all look back on how that was done and say it could have been done better. So yeah, I'm trying to do my part to go directly to celebrating the music of Led Zeppelin, but also really trying to pick up where they got some of the music that we now know.
I love it. The reason why I wanted to talk with you and everybody watching, because I think that if we have a platform, part of our job is to set the story straight so that there is something that we all can look at, have a conversation on, and just continue to learn and grow. I think that also, I mean, just for myself as, I just say as a woman, and then obviously as a woman of color, there's certain spaces that I really want to see us in. And I think that, right? And it's kind of like, now is the time for people to make the wrongs right. And we're here. And I think that the way, for me, it's also like for our culture to understand that we did create rock and roll. So when you exclude the others, you're excluding me, and I'm Black. So I'm like, it's a part of what we've done. And I need us to understand that. That is also one of the main reasons why I want this to live, so that people can look and see and say, here's some real proof. Kat, what would you tell your younger self about everything you know now in looking at Sister Rosetta Tharpe and the spaces and wanting to see yourself in certain spaces?
I don't know that I would tell my younger self was pretty curious about everything. So I dug deep. I traveled, I went to countries. I spent 10, 15 years in Canada, where the French were way more open to, all forms of what they call the original American music than sometimes the American public was, because the American music marketing machine was pushing everything away from the root of the thing and making the younger generation, well, that's for them. This is the new thing for you. Let's come up with a name. The machine took the art out of the art. So I guess I would tell my younger self, pay more attention to the art and don't be so influenced by the machine. You get pushed into, living for the machine, because the machine, of course, will hire you and feed you and do this and do that. But as you get into the artists that you start to work with and love, and you get into what their roots are, then you find out the foundation. So I guess I would be even more foundational, because I studied music at Norfolk State University with Spike Lee's aunt, Bill Lee's sister, Consuela Lee Moorhead. She was a pianist. She was on School Days at the End, where you see this woman playing jazz piano. Wow. That was one of my main teachers. And it was a HBCU, so they were all about being into the roots of the thing. So I would tell my younger self, don't worry so much about the machine.
Gotcha. And what about you, Ellie?
About my younger self?
I mean, like, because something.
I'm still pretty.
Yeah, but something inside makes you still want to do what you're doing. You got a long way to go.
I guess just kind of honing in on, again, where the music that I love so much comes from and why I love to play it, I guess.
Gotcha. That's very good. Let me ask you this. Do you, though you're 21, I mean, obviously this business is crazy. So, but my thing is, as a person who's, for me, I love to play music, and I was in a family band, and we were professional by 12. And my thing is, we just had all this ambition and drive to do things. And then you start to get out there, and then you really see it. Was it everything that you imagined if you were 16 that it is at 21? You're traveling, you're meeting people, Is it what you thought?
I feel like everything that, and especially in the music industry, is going to be a grind. And I thought I knew that going into it, but you don't really know until you're in it. You don't really know until it happens to you.
Welcome.
That's what I'm talking about. So anybody watching The Real, yeah.
But I think I live for that. Like I live to, I want to, work for it, even though it may not be super easy. And I know for others, it's a lot harder than, what I have to deal with. But I think that, I live for it, and I want to work hard. I want to achieve the goals that I set for myself with my music.
She was so aggressive and so, I mean, they have trouble with that now. She wasn't a pretty little petite package. I'm a big lady. I know what that feels like. So it's like, was it the marketing people and I agree with Kat. I think one of the major issues was she was straddling two worlds musically, but so were people like Sam Cooke and others.
Being the first is one thing, but real change is many of us. Many of us occupy in certain spaces.
That's it. Yeah. That's exactly what I tell my younger self by a long stretch. I tell myself to take up more space.
Amen. Come on,
especially in spaces where we might not be. Hey, okay. So what's the point? And I've thought this before, and I haven't said this anywhere. I want to say it now. What's the point of everyone squatting on a dime and taking up exactly the same space? That makes no sense to me. I've got a Kool-Aid man philosophy of walking into spaces and being like, this is mine. Because you have no choice, especially as a dark-skinned woman. Like, you have no choice. You have to Kool-Aid yourself into spaces and go, this is mine. And they'll be like, oh, but are you sure? And I'm like, I can tell you 3 reasons why this is mine, especially because it's music. And therefore, essentially, it's all African and I'm African. So
I love it.
But there's no other way. And I spent a very large amount of my time as a kid not doing that, allowing myself to be told I had no place playing guitar. And it's because I was a top line writer and I was collaborative, and me then picking up the guitar as well would mean I did all of it. And that would be horribly threatening.
Absolutely.
And so they were like, I was told I didn't have the inclination, so I shouldn't bother.
Wow.
There's always.
You have tears coming down my face, girl.
I remember being just approached by women going, thank you for being in front. Thank you for being in front. It was like a real big thing. And so that whole idea of them picking up a guitar and having some autonomy was double threatening. Oh, you want to be in the front and you want autonomy to have all of the royalties to yourself? What, you want the money? I'm like, yeah, because I've got ideas and they're crowding up my head. They're going to have to come out. And so that's what I tell myself, my young self would be, write songs and do your research so you know what belongs to you.
Amen.
And don't let them talk you out of what belongs to you, because Black women created rock and roll music. So it's yours.
I love it. Yola.
Yeah, I mean, but you asked a question before as far as what took so long. Even when Johnny Cash covered Rosetta Tharpe and acknowledged it, he did it on a gospel record. Even when Elvis covered Rosetta Tharpe, did one of her songs pretty much like her with his little band that didn't sound anything half as swinging or as hard. He put it on a gospel record. See, so they still took parts and pieces. They said she was cool, she was cute, but she was gospel.
Yeah. Compartmentalizing, is that genrefying again.
That's the machine that, that pretty much
pushes you to the
keeps
side
us from each other. And that's the one thing I've always loved about the UK. You had a pop chart, not 29,000 charts. You had a chart of the songs. Pop meant the songs that are popular.
Done.
And Gretchen, what about yourself? What would you tell your younger self, knowing everything that you know now?
Oh man, it's a tough question, because on one hand I would say that if you're happy in the present, you can't lament too much of the past.
Amen.
But I would say, to continue to try to prioritize connection and camaraderie over comparing yourself to other people, that it's far better to have friends than people. You know, if you feel that sense of competition with somebody, it's because you admire them, and so you've just misattributed a negative emotion to something that's positive. So rather than sit there and try to look for something bad in somebody, go up to them and say, I really admire what you do. And in most cases, you end up with a new friend and somebody who's often very happy to share some of what they do with you. And I think exactly what was said earlier. Focus on the art. The music is a terrible financial decision for most of us. And the reason to do it is because you must do it. And if you don't love what you're doing, and if it isn't as unique as you are as a person, then why even do it? So I think embrace your weird, figure out who you are as an artist, and be unapologetic. And if there was anybody who was unapologetic, Sister Rosetta Tharpe owned who she was and absolutely made no apologies. So
I love that.
I think that's what I would encourage in myself.
Well, I want to say thank you guys so much. And I always leave off with this. Like my mom and dad always said to me, Malina, when you don't see yourself represented, show up. When you think you can't, show up, and always know you matter and you count. And I see all of you guys, and thank you for consistently just being incredible and occupying your spaces. And thank you for shattering the glass ceiling. And thank you to Gibson for letting us come in to speak and to share our truths. We hope that this also allows you to have conversation, Google, talk to your friends, but more importantly, open your heart and try to just see the influence of Sister Rosetta Tharpe, because it's everywhere. So thank you guys. Mwah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm following everybody.
Yeah, right, exactly.